Welcome to For Formula One's Sake, the F1 podcast that takes its staffing cues from Ferrari.
Get the red phone and call the backup.
Has Ollie had his appendix out? What's happening?
Welcome to For Formula One's Sake, the podcast that isn't as important as one person.
No, I don't think we're important as any people, are we?
No, but which one of us is Max and which one of us is Horner?
I mean, I think you're both, aren't you?
Welcome to For Formula One's Sake, a fan of hairy bearded men long before it was fashionable.
I don't know what this reference is for.
Bear.
Oh, now I get it.
Welcome to For Formula One's Sake, buying up all the stock of F1 driver voodoo dolls with removable appendices? Appendi?
Appendus?
See, I wanted appendices, but that sounds too much like a book, even though an appendix is also a book. But appendices feels like book appendix. I think
it sounds like a Formula E team.
Welcome to For Formula One's Sake, finishing comfortably last in our big rebranding comeback.
Not a euphemism.
Oh no, it was a euphemism.
Welcome to For Formula One's Sake, the podcast F1 deserves. I'm Drew Stearne, and tonight from the Formula 2 paddock, I'll be taking over at very short notice from Ollie Bearman, who is ill. Although I was primed to host a different podcast this evening, and I've been hurriedly fitted with a beautifully designed FF1S t-shirt, and now I'm expected to perform as the eyes of the world are upon me. Will I fuck it up, or will I be voted podcast presenter of the day? We'll find out as we look back at a disappointingly missile-free Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in Jeddah. We'll talk super subs, predictable winners, and hopeless has-beens, and check in to see if Red Bull has imploded yet. That's all to come. Joining me is a man who needs a haircut. It's Phill Tromans.
Hello. Those of you who watch on YouTube, and there are literally dozens of you now, it's going very well, thanks for asking, will notice that I've been wearing hats for the last few episodes because I really, really need a haircut. But the trouble is, when I had long hair, I used to travel a bit to go to a long hair specialist barber, and now I don't have long hair. But I don't want to let my barber down.
What the fuck is a long hair specialist barber?
You mean a lady's hairdresser?
No, he's a barber, but he does long hair instead of short hair. Because normal barbers, they'll just go zup, 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 get the clippers out, bish, bash, bosh, 12 quid on your way.
12 quid, oh bless you.
I mean, it was 12 quid a couple of years ago, but the trouble is, it's like half an hour drive away to the guy I've been going with, and I really like him. We talk about cars, and I don't want to let him down, but I haven't had time to go. And now I've got short hair, I need my hair cut much more often. And I haven't had my hair out for ages. I'm just wearing hats all the time.
I've got to say, Phil, this is one of the most boring subjects you've ever
Well,
chosen.
it's only been a week since the last race. What am I going to have done? Nothing.
Yeah, well.
And beside him is a man who has had a haircut.
Oh, here we
it's
go.
Terry Saunders.
Now we're talking.
I was getting my hair bleached by a professional hair bleacher.
Hang on. You'd already bleached it, though.
When?
Last week. You said I was going to bleach it, but she wasn't there, so I bleached it myself.
Oh shit, I've got nothing. Quick, let's go back to your
tell
hair.
the same story again. Amazing. Drew, any haircut-related anecdotes?
No, I'm between haircuts at the moment. I've been getting to know my enemy. Listeners might remember I got laid off last year, and my whole department got replaced by AI. So I've been spending the last couple of months really getting up to speed with the latest developments in AI, and basically using AI to create really weird images of things that are.
Have you been working for the
ridiculous.
royal family, perhaps?
Yeah. It's only been a week since the last episode, but things in F1 don't stop. So let's check in with the news, which will almost definitely be out of date by the time you hear this. Let's start with Red Bull, which is rapidly turning into a series of plot twists worthy of Game of Thrones, except with less blood and hopefully less disappointing conclusion. Since we last spoke, Helmut Marko was maybe going to be suspended and now isn't. Although he's insinuated that he might be off if things don't chill the fuck out. And Max Verstappen has hinted that if Marko goes, he might go too, which immediately saw everyone link him to Hamilton's seat at Mercedes. Other apparent news is that the woman who complained about Christian Horner has apparently been suspended, while German broadcaster RTL reports that Horner himself has given her some 700,000 euros as a severance payment, topped up to $1 million by Red Bull, allegedly.
Oh, that's nice of him. What a nice man.
He's a lovely guy, isn't he? Red Bull doesn't seem like a very nice place to work.
I'm going to say that they put a lot of money into making fast cars, not so much money into HR.
Yeah, you do have to wonder what HR is doing.
HR is just Jos Verstappen, like with a false moustache. Yes?
So, once again, with Red Bull, because nothing's been officially confirmed and they're about as transparent as a brick, we don't really know what's going on. But, you know, we're bottom feeding and reporting what everybody else is reporting. The smoke without fire theory suggests that whatever's going on is rather distasteful.
Well, it does seem weird because you would think that Max Verstappen is the number one prize asset. There are three big assets in Red Bull. You've got Adrian Newey, Max Verstappen, and Christian Horner, because, you know, whatever you think of him, he has done very well at running Red Bull. And now Adrian Newey has not been talked about much in this last couple of weeks. Oh, and there's Helmut Marko as well, obviously. And it feels like Horner's come out fighting, saying that Max Verstappen, if he wants to go, I'm not going to stop him. No one person is more important than Red Bull, he says whilst going. But actually, the whole company's going to,
apart from me,
support me because I'm more important than Red Bull. In fact, I think it should be called
Hornbull.
Because there was even a rumour this week that he was trying to buy the Formula One team himself.
Oh God! Well, he used to run a team, didn't he? Didn't he used to run? Was it Arden? He used to run. I can't remember. I definitely had a team in one of the lower formula.
Feels like quite an apt name, doesn't it?
Yeah,
but I don't know. So now, then this whole thing with Helmut Marko, who was going to get done for leaking stories to the press.
Well, he said he was. Red Bull didn't say this. He said this himself. He
leaked that to the press.
Might be getting suspended.
It feels like the equivalent of being caught using the office printer, doesn't it? It's like it's not really a thing.
Oh, maybe I'll leak some secrets. Sure, I went down to that news agency in Woking, but, you know, what are they going to do?
But it's a glorious mess, isn't it?
Well, it is. The interesting thing about this is that Marko now apparently has had a chat with the boss of Red Bull GmbH, which is the parent company, which is like Red Bull proper, that does all the drinks and everything.
Yes.
And has apparently sort of come to a sort of truce with them. And there seems to be a sort of what I've heard described as like an uneasy peace at Red Bull for the moment. But what's been interesting is that when Horner was going through all the stuff, and when Jos Verstappen came out with his nonsense last week, Max Verstappen was very kind of like, you know, I'm sure they've all, I just want everybody happy, la 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 la. But as soon as Marko came out with something and said, "Oh, maybe I'll leave," Verstappen basically said, "Well, if Marko's going, I'm going," or words to that effect. Like, he has nailed his colours to Helmut Marko's face.
Do you think Marko is that? Which is how he lost the eye.
Yes, exactly.
Do you think Marko's his real dad?
I mean, no, because he looks so much like his dad. Otherwise, that would be a good theory. Maybe his granddad.
Maybe that's his mum.
His mum's quite famous.
Just because you're famous doesn't mean you've lied about your child.
as they famously say, yeah.
The royal family.
Oh, allegedly. No, that's good. No, I don't want to be sued by the royal family. I can cope with the Red Bull, but no.
I think being sued by the royal family would be a breeze right now. They seem in quite a disarray.
Yeah, nobody's sweating about that, are they?
Nice.
Good call back there. So, yeah, it does seem that Verstappen's allegiance is very much with Helmut Marko. And this has, prompted some wild speculation, which we're all too happy to get involved in, that if Verstappen goes, where would he go? Would he go to Mercedes?
Well, it would have to be Mercedes, wouldn't it? Because he's not going to go to Ferrari with Hamilton for a fact. I mean, I'd love it, but I can't imagine it.
My immediate reaction is no, but then having said that, like, Ferrari were quite happy to jettison Sainz for Hamilton, and I'm fairly sure if they thought they had a sniff at Verstappen, they'd probably jettison.
I don't know. Leclerc is on a pretty juicy. Yeah, but Leclerc, they wouldn't jettison Hamilton.
I mean, when you think about it, Hamilton when he goes there is going to be 40. Verstappen is like right now the best driver. I wouldn't put it past him. You know what Ferrari are like.
Oh my God, that would hurt more than 2021 Abu Dhabi, wouldn't it? If you signed for Ferrari,
I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, they're not quite as bad now as they used to be in the Enzo days, but Ferrari famously ruthless.
Lewis, we're just going to go through our contract, and we just want to make sure that
they got rid of Prost.
You're okay with being a reserve driver, yeah?
But yeah, they hoofed Prost out because he said the car was a bit like a truck. So,
yeah, but the car was a bit like a truck.
I know exactly, and he was telling the truth, and they still kicked him out, and he was like a multiple world champion at that point. So.
Well, I don't know.
But isn't that
I think they'd
exactly what we wanted to see? Is Hamilton and Max in the same car?
Yeah, if they got
to
rid of-
actually see what they're like.
I mean, in the same car would be amazing. Be like the old days where they swap between drivers between. Yeah, that's great. Oh yeah.
No, I think that I think they'd get if Max was sniffing around. I think they'd fire Leclerc.
I think they'd fire Hamilton before they'd fire Leclerc. Because
I
while
think they'd fire
I
Leclerc.
think that Hamilton is a more complete driver, they've got longevity in Leclerc because he's young.
Yeah, but they've
All
also
eyes would be on them, though, if they had both of those drivers. And every shot in every coverage would be of their two cars battling it out. Hopefully, that would be massively.
and Adrian Newey would design two entirely separate Ferraris for one each.
I hope I live to regret this, but I'm starting to feel a little bit that maybe Hamilton is on the down slope.
No.
Maybe
He
just
hugged
a
Ollie
little
Bearman when he got out of the car.
Oh yeah, he's a lovely man. But I like Sebastian Vettel as well. He's a lovely man. He's got the same birthday as me. What a great guy. But
No,
you can't argue that in the last couple of years he was nowhere near what he used to be.
Yeah,
and I
but
just worry in the last
no.
couple of races. I hope I'm wrong.
I think you're wrong. I was thinking the same thing because it feels on the surface that George Russell is faster than Lewis Hamilton because, he is. But
Sure, you
I
can
don't
prove a
think
lot of
that's-
things with facts.
yeah, exactly. If you use numbers to quantify statistics, then actually everything's easy. But I do feel like, and this might not be a good thing, but I do have a feeling that if the Mercedes this year was as fast as the Red Bull, Lewis would just find that extra gear. And I still believe that with all my heart.
All your heart. That's
All
beautiful.
my heart.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. But in the meantime, let's see if Red Bull tears itself apart. There does seem to be a bit of a weird truce at the moment, but I mean, how long is it going to last? Clearly, there's a lot of people at Red Bull that all hate each other.
They should do a reality TV.
Oh, I would watch that. Drive to Survive, I don't care about anymore. In-house, all-access Red Bull behind-the-scenes Big Brother, I'd be all over that.
Remember Felipe Massa being rather butthurt about the handling of the 2008 Singapore GP Crashgate scandal? He feels it basically cost him that year's World Championship, and now he's officially filed a lawsuit against the FIA, Formula One management, and Bernie Ecclestone. Remind me what this was all about?
So, this goes back to the 2008 World Championship, where, for those of you new to the sport or who've been drinking a lot and can't remember, Massa was
Or
both. Massa was essentially driving for Ferrari. He was basically the world champion elect for about 30 seconds at the Brazilian Grand Prix, last race of the season. He won it, and it looked like Hamilton wasn't going to come fifth or sixth or wherever he needed to be.
Is that Glock?
And then there was the famous "Is that Glock" moment where Hamilton overtook Timo Glock on the last but one corner and got whatever place it was, fifth place, and won the championship by not very much. And Massa was devastated. Massa is now contending that an incident earlier in that season at the Singapore Grand Prix where Fernando Alonso...
We might need a primer on who these drivers are because the younger listeners won't know who
Fernando
these
Alonso
old
is.
drivers are.
Felipe
Alonso
Massa
or
was a
Hamilton.
balding Brazilian man. Lots of fun, quite little. So the Singapore Grand Prix 2008... I mean, it was a whole other incident. There was a Crashgate scandal. I know it's hard to believe that there'd be a scandal in Formula One, but there was. Where it emerged that Fernando Alonso, who was at Renault at the time, his teammate, Nelson Piquet Jr., crashed, bringing out a safety car, which benefited Fernando Alonso considerably in terms of getting a short pit stop. And did he win the race? I can't remember, but he certainly did well. It turned out that Piquet crashed deliberately. Possibly without Fernando Alonso's knowledge. I think that was the end of Briatore, wasn't it? That whole...
Legally without Fernando's knowledge.
Legally without his knowledge.
Jesus Christ.
From memory, I think that was the end of... that marked the end, or certainly a ban of Flavio Briatore, wasn't it? That was based on that, wasn't it?
Briatore, it was the
his
guy
idea.
the guy from Renault who looks like he smokes cigarettes, Pat Simmons.
Lots of people got in trouble
the
for it.
PKs.
Anyway, Massa's contention is that there was an interview with Bernie Ecclestone quite a long time later, quite recently, I think, where he basically said they knew that this was dodgy and they didn't really do anything about it because they thought that would be best. And Massa is now saying, I lost the championship because of that, because I would have won had it not been for that safety car. Now, this conveniently overlooks the fact that Massa didn't finish that race because this was back in the time when you could refuel in the middle of a race, and he went flying out of his pit stop with his fuel rig still attached, nearly flattened one of his team members, and was out the race as a result. So he didn't finish that race anyway, but he's contending that were it not for that, I would have done much better in that race. I would have had more points. I would have won the World Championship. I'd have had a lot more money. I'd have had a lot more success, and this is your fault that this has happened, and I'm going to sue you. And he basically wants, I think, an acknowledgement that that is the case and some sort of financial recompense. But I think the acknowledgement that this is the case is more important to him, probably, because I'm sure he's not short of a few quid.
I mean, I think this is interesting because this should, I mean, by rights, this should stretch further. So, for a bit of context, I watched the 2008 Brazilian Grand Prix in Woking with a bunch of McLaren employees.
Ooh.
And it was very exciting. I was in a pub in Woking in the days of my previous podcast, and they'd invited us along, and there was me and a few friends. And when Hamilton won, they all got their what was those, the red T-shirt, the victory T-shirts they had, which, think of how many unworn victory T-shirts McLaren must have made in the last 10 years. Because we better have a box just in case.
They've stopped making them now.
Yeah, that's why they went to orange.
Well, they'll be like the ones they have in cycling, where you win jerseys at the end of a cycling race, and they literally have blank ones in the back, and then as somebody crosses the line, they're just ironing a logo on it.
But I got really drunk that day because basically all the people in the pub got a massive bonus if Hamilton won the championship.
Got what? Sorry,
so a massive erection.
Right.
Sorry. Bonus.
Oh,
bonus.
Sorry.
And so, bearing in mind, this was the pub car park had a lot of flash cars in it. These people were not short of money, but they were getting a lot of extra money. So then the champagne came out, and it was like I was like being at a Formula 1 race. They were spraying the champagne over this pub, and I got so drunk that I took the next week off work because I was so hungover. And I wouldn't say I lost my job from it, but it didn't help.
I didn't keep it.
Let's say I didn't keep it. So if Felipe Massa is successful in this court case, then I've got a right to sue McLaren for getting me so drunk that I lost my job. So
why were you with McLaren?
I used to be Ron Dennis.
Okay.
No, it was when I was doing my old podcast. We had basically that podcast was quite relevant in that people from Formula 1 admitted to listening to it. So we had some McLaren staffers who had listened to it a lot, and they invited us to watch the race with them because it was basically all the staff that don't have anything to do on the day. So they're not at the race, they're not in mission control, they're just in the pub.
That was presumably back in the day where they were basically just 3 F1 podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. It was me and Murray Walker getting pissed. Back in those days.
Oh,
but yeah,
they were the days. But anyway,
so I think if he wins, I've got a right to sue. And then think of all the knock-on effects. Everyone has to sue everyone about everything. Even COVID. I'm going to sue Ross Brawn about COVID.
I have a certain amount of sympathy for Felipe Massa because. No, actually, I'm thinking about it now. I don't really see his case. Like, it wasn't like you didn't win that race because of that incident. You didn't win that race because you went out of your pit stop before you finished, and you knackered your own race. So even if that had happened or not, you still had to make a pit stop. You may well still have made that mistake.
It'd be better if he was fighting a lawsuit against the FIA, Formula 1 management, Bernie Ecclestone, and Giuseppe, who was my fuel guy that day. It really fucked it all up for me.
That would make more sense. I'd be intrigued to hear the legal arguments for this, because I can't see it on the face of it, but who knows? Have you been following this, Drew?
Vaguely. I think digging up the past, if you can make some money out of it and you needed the money, I kind of get it, but it just makes you look petty. So I don't think it actually helps you build up your personal profile. So if it's not for the money, then I'm not entirely sure what the apology is actually going to benefit him. I mean, you can, if you're someone who's triumphant in those small defeats, big defeats, I guess, at that stage, and just owns it and understands that this was part of your history and that's what made you. There's loads of drivers that never made a Formula 1 World Championship, but that we still hold dear in our hearts and are great characters when we get to see them, and they've gone on to be very successful in other walks of life. So the fact that I'm not sure if it's not the money, And if there was money coming and he needed the money, then okay, then I kind of see the point. But if it's not about the money, I really don't see how this is going to benefit him in any shape or form.
In fact, that's a good point, because it's making me think, if he wins this, I'm going to sue Felipe Massa, because Felipe Massa has always been touted as being one of those people who, in the face of losing, has put a brave face on it, and he's a real sportsman and he's a hero, and that's how you should, come on kids, that's how you should act if you lose. You should hold your head up and be proud. And then 10 years later, sue fucking everyone because you're a little bitch.
When are the lawsuits for Abu Dhabi 2021 going to start?
I was just thinking.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah,
the next one.
The only reason I back this is if he calls Timo Glock as a witness, and the judge goes, "Is that Glock?"
Tell us how wrong we are. You can do so via the coolest and uncoolest social medias. We're at For F1's Sake on Twitter /X, Instagram, and on Facebook. And why not hi thee to YouTube and comment on our videos? We promise not to block you, unless you're mean. Or you can email us wrong@ff1s.com. Alternatively, if you think we're right, then why not buy us a beer at the Whinging Mustache? The Whinging Mustache is a pub. Sort of. It's also a way of life, but it's mostly an Apple subscription where you can get ad-free versions of this podcast. This week, renowned F1 journalist Tony Dodgins joins us in the Whinging Mustache and told us what the current crop of F1 drivers can do to make themselves legends. Here's a clip.
They've got the basic competitiveness and need to win. I think they've all got that. But in terms of being a personality, I think it's so much probably more difficult these days because it's because of sponsors and commitments, and you mustn't upset this person, you can't say that, and you've got to be a much more aware. It's more of a commercial business, whereas back in the older Ascari days and and even the 70s, you got people like you got Andretti and Scheckter and Lauda and Hunt. They said exactly what they thought, and they didn't care, and they didn't have to worry so much about it. I mean, back then it was a ciggy company, and that was about it, But they would. I remember, when Hunt tangled with Andretti at Zandvoort, he's like, problem with James Hunt, he thinks he's the king of the goddamn world, not the world champion of the world, and what am I supposed to do? Pick my nose and follow the king, and very quotable stuff he would always come out with, and. Nowadays, anything they say gets sort of jumped on and generates headlines and stuff. So they're a bit more aware that I don't think it's a good thing. I like to see people being outspoken, but it's more difficult for them.
Who, aside from Verstappen and Hamilton and Alonso already on your list, who stands out on the current grid for you as somebody who, let's say you revise this book in 5-6 years' time, might be on the long list?
Interestingly, because of Hamilton's recent decision to go to Ferrari, I think Charles Leclerc is a guy who has got the potential to win multiple world titles in the right car, but it hasn't quite fallen for him yet. So I would be keeping an eye out for him, and I think it's going to be fascinating when Hamilton goes to Ferrari to see what happens between the two of them.
That was legendary, iconic, and available F1 author and journalist Tony Dodgins speaking to Terry and Phill earlier this week. You can hear the full interview right now by subscribing to The Whinging Mustache on Apple Podcasts. And there's a free 7-day trial right now. Head to our page and join us at The Whinging Mustache. Or, if you just want to say thanks for making sense of F1 for another year, you can donate a one-off pint or 3 to us at ff1s.com/pint. Okay, let's have a look at the teams and find out who's happy and who might get an invite to a Turkish embassy. Red Bull. Max Verstappen might be trapped in a burning Rome, but he's fiddling away happily and racking up the wins. At this point, it doesn't look like anyone can stop him. And even Sergio Perez seems to be doing okay. Not in qualifying, but in the race at least he's doing his duty and coming home P2. Is there even a glimmer of hope that this won't continue forever and ever and ever and ever?
I mean, the aforementioned madness at Red Bull still gives me hope, but the trouble is the car is just so much better, at least in Verstappen's hand is so much better still. Maybe even better than it was last year. I think it would get to the point where, the factory would have to literally be on fire, and for them not to be able to get like spare bits out to them at the races, for them not to be quite a long way ahead of everyone. I worry. I wonder if they can just stop working on. I wonder if they're working on next year's car already.
Well, I'm starting to picture Christian Horner as some kind of horny dog who's trying to fuck everything that moves.
You're starting.
So, well, yeah, because before this controversy, I thought he was a very happy man. But so my only hope now is that whenever they bring upgrades, Horner just ruins them all by fucking them in the articulated lorry. So here you go. I'll get it. I'll get the new exhaust. Oh, I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's happened to this. It's all wet.
We should say we have no concrete evidence that is what's happening.
Unless Adrian Newey is such a genius at design, he's putting dummy holes.
I mean, maybe that's why they're so aerodynamically slippery.
Because they're actually slippery.
Is that going to be an FIA guidance on the 2026 cars? Is that the holes cannot be wider than a blurry penis?
Well, they have to bring out those like modesty panels. We can't see.
Christian Horner's working on the car again.
Oh God!
Summon Christian Horny.
Yeah,
I think he's broken curfew.
He's working on next year's car, from what I've heard. Yeah.
The younger model.
No, Christian, that's in Parc Ferme.
That won't stop him.
It's until it's of age.
Oh God! No, do we want to call the championship after 2 of 24 races?
Yes. Max Verstappen's won the championship.
That's so depressing. But there's enough. The soap opera going on behind is keeping me entertained. I mean, we're only in trouble if there's no scandal anymore of like anything. If everything goes competent and Verstappen is still dominating, then we're in trouble.
I entirely agree. I mean, I think this year has been the best start of the year for fucking years, and the races have been boring as shit.
Actually, watching the races is the least interesting bit, which is as it should be.
Yes.
Ferrari. The Ferrari isn't as fast as the Red Bull and probably never is going to be, but Charles Leclerc has had a largely error-free weekend to get the best result possible. Carlos Sainz blotted his copybook by losing control of his appendix, but he was ably replaced by Ollie Bearman, who got 7th place on his debut. Might he be back for Australia?
Maybe. I mean,
my nephew had an appendix out and he was in hospital for a week. Carlos Sainz was back at the track the next day, which
that was insane.
Foolish.
Because I've also had my appendix out. It was like 25 years ago, but I was in hospital for a week as well, and it absolutely sucked. So to see Sainz at the track the following day, admittedly, do you see the video of him like hobbling into the track? He did not.
He
look
was
good.
captain. He was Major Captain Tomming it, wasn't he?
He was absolutely off his head.
I'm doing this for children in need.
Yeah.
Ollie Bearman.
He was absolutely loaded up with not heroin. What's the legal heroin? Morphine. Don't want to start that rumour. Carlos Sainz is on heroin. I think he was loaded up with painkillers and just had to make an appearance. But I mean, I can't see him being ready to fly halfway around the world and get back in physical shape for Australia.
It does seem like a big ask, doesn't it? And I mean, I wrote a tweet based on this, but I do feel like what should have happened at the end of the race with Carlos Sainz being at the track is when Bearman got out of the car, he should have slid his fist into his appendix wound and then just opened his hand inside Carlos Sainz, because that would have given him at least 3 Grand Prix.
Like Videodrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's known as
Ferrari.
doing a Lawson.
I think Ferrari would have respected him for that. That's what Enzo would have done.
That is what Enzo would have done.
He used to fist his drivers.
What? That's a very different thing. Oh. Unless it wasn't. I mean, I think we're going to talk about Bearman more in the preview episode that you'll hear soon. But let's talk about him a bit now, because I thought that was one of the most impressive drives I've maybe ever seen.
Some gutsy stuff in there.
I think he was great. I'm going to say the only negative thing I have about him, which is that he looks like a kind of chavvy kid that would be asking you to buy him cigarettes in the shop, without hanging outside the shop. And they'd be like, "Excuse me, can you buy us a beer?"
But he didn't sound like that, though. Did you hear him speak?
I don't think I have heard him speak.
He has a very curious accent because he's from Essex. But I think he spent a lot of time because he was racing in Italian F4 and I think maybe German F4, and he has a sort of Italian-German Essex accent. It's very weird. He seems like a lovely boy, and was just like, I'm more pleased to be here. But yeah, he does sound quite funny. The more I've thought about what he's done, and the more I've sort of read about what he did and what he had to go through, the more impressed I am. Like the amount of pressure on his shoulders, and he's 18. He's the third youngest F1 driver ever, the youngest British F1 driver ever. He had 1 hour of free practice 3 to get used to the car, and he's not just going into a backmarker team where nobody really cares, what's going on. He's in a blooming Ferrari, the second fastest car on the grid. He came within a whisker of getting into Q3, and he finished 20 seconds behind Leclerc in a car that he'd never driven. He's driven some other F1 cars but never raced them.
Well, he's driven a Haaaaaaas. That doesn't count.
It's barely an F1 car. Well, in fairness, it is a Ferrari, essentially. He had next to no notice. The pressure, my God, like the amount of people looking at him, because he was doing a lot of press beforehand as well. He must have been getting briefings on just about everything, because the jump from a spec F2 car and every other car he's ever driven to a top-end Formula 1 car, I think even if he had driven this car before, it probably would have changed now, because they're all forever upgrading them and changing bits and bobs. To learn everything about it, to get even the most basic understanding of the tyres, because we all know how sensitive the tyres are. Look at Piastri last year, not super fast, super talented. Took him ages to get to grips with how the tyres worked. Somehow Bearman pretty much managed to do it. I think he absolutely nailed it. I was so impressed by him.
Yeah, do you know what? I could say a lot of funny things about. I think that he should be disqualified because who qualifies for pole on a race and doesn't show up to the fucking race? It's disgusting. Go to the F2 race, go, no, I'm too big for this, guys. And typical FIA shearers, they'd be like, right, we're throwing the fucking book at him because that's disgusting. But do you know what? Jokes aside for once, I think he was fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, we piled praise on Liam Lawson last year when he came in at short notice and did a really good job. I think Bearman did a better job still. Taking nothing away from Lawson, who did brilliantly, but absolutely smashed it. Now, I suspect he's absolutely now in with a shout for a seat in 2025, and I also wonder if this will make teams think more carefully about getting young kids in, because there's been a debate for several years now about the fact that they're just keeping the same old sods, and just winning F2 now isn't going to guarantee you a seat. Look at Porsche last year. Now it's proven that you can put a kid into an F1 car and they're up to speed pretty quickly.
Yeah, but that kid's got to be at least as good or better than Kevin Magnussen.
Well, this is
and
true.
That's a big ask.
But this is another thing. Like Bearman has a pretty good record. I was looking through his record, and it's good. It's good. It's more than solid, but it's not spectacular. Like, he didn't come in and absolutely blow everybody away. He did 2 seasons of F2. He won a couple of races in his first season of F2, which was great. But he's not somebody who he's not somebody who jumps out as like, oh my God, this kid's the next big thing. But he's absolutely smashed it. And when you've got the likes of Logan Sargent, Zhou Guan Yu, who else? Magnussen. Actually, Hulkenberg had a reasonable weekend. Bottas.
Oh, fuck Hulkenberg. I'm sick of it.
Why are those guys still there? And I buy the argument of you've got to be super cautious because these are big investments. There's a lot of money going into this. You need a safe pair of hands. But if somebody like Bearman can come in and perform like that, then there are others that can do that. There are others that people are rating higher than Bearman. Although again, he is very good and he is highly regarded. But let's get some more fresh blood in. Let's not have another year where we don't, if it wasn't for this, we wouldn't have had any rookies this year for the first time in Formula 1 ever. So
exactly,
I think it's an all-round good thing. Not that I want to encourage too many good news stories in Formula One, because that's not our stock in trade. But
yeah, what's happened? What's happened, Phil?
We'll be relentlessly positive for these 5 minutes. But
we're all unilaterally praising a driver. That's never happened.
Well, having said that, we were all full of 2 years ago. We were full of praise for Nick de Vries in his Williams drive, and look how that ended. So.
Yeah, good point. Actually, maybe young people are shit, but Nick de Vries is about 40.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Nick de Vries is certainly late 20s, so it's not even quite the same thing.
McLaren. After his rookie season last year, is Oscar Piastri starting to take charge at McLaren? The Australian was faster than Lando Norris in qualifying and cruised home in 4th in the race, 4 places ahead of the Brit, even though Norris got a head start on everyone. Is this the start of Norris's new position as the number 2 driver?
Maybe.
I don't know. This is a bit unfair on Norris, I think, because he did get caught out by the safety car, and he did a jump start that somehow wasn't a jump start, but also gave him a disadvantage.
How did he not get penalised for that?
It's something to do with the transponder.
Is it something because he stopped? Because I thought it was like you have a certain amount of leeway, like if you creep forward and you're not over the line or something. That's all right.
And you stop before the lights go,
but
and then you
watching
restart.
the replay, it looked like he moved forward quite a lot. I was quite surprised it didn't go off.
I think
I
they
remember
switched
Seb
the
Vettel doing the
transponder
same at one
Maybe.
point. Like he rocked forward or something.
Is it like when the kids with magnets disable the tags in stores to shoplift stuff? Is he just sitting there with a magnet on his transponder and then I'm just going to go?
Wait, I didn't know this was a thing.
Was that a thing?
So I've heard.
Are there tags on all your clothes, Phil?
Turn around. No.
Like they're under house arrest. You can't go into Next without setting off alarm bells.
I'm not saying anything
I
else.
really hope if you get like a, what's it called, a tag for if you're under house arrest?
Ankle tag.
Ankle tag. I hope that can be deactivated with 2 magnets.
Yeah, but yeah, as you were saying, like it didn't actually give him that much of a headache because he went and then he stopped. I was like, no, just embrace it, go for it. Take 14 places before anybody else has moved. Yeah.
I mean, what's the maximum penalty you can get for jumping the start? Can you get disqualified?
I don't know. I feel like
could you go from the back?
I feel like
right early, overtake everyone, and then take the 10 seconds because you would have never.
I feel
made
like
it
we should
to
have
the
a
front
copy of the rules.
anyway.
I mean, the stewards must have leeway to avoid that. You can't just Leroy Jenkins your way to like turn 5 before everybody started.
I know that I've tried that in the Formula 1 game, and it doesn't let you. It disqualifies you.
I'd imagine, yeah. It'd be at the very least a stop-go penalty, I think. Maybe a black flag. A couple of penalty points.
But Piastri was very good.
He's getting it. He's getting. I called it. Next world champion.
Well, no, I think the next world champion is going to be Ollie Bearman. Because that guy can do no wrong until he does the next race.
Yeah. But the trouble is, like,
I'll hate him.
To go back to Bearman for a second, if he is in for a drive, he's not going to Ferrari, obviously. He's probably going to go to Haas. Because he's their test and reserve driver already, isn't he? And he's driven their cars in FP1. So he ain't going to be winning any. You know, I mean, I could see him as a replacement for Hamilton when he retires in a few years. But
maybe.
Anyway, sorry, we're talking about McLaren now, aren't we? Yeah, Piastri's really good. I mean, he's no Ollie Bearman, as you say, but he's doing a good job. Is Ollie Bearman now the gold standard for driving?
Yes, I think that's exactly how it should be.
Sure, Senna was good, but, you know.
Hang on, what was that thing? Were you talking about this the other week, or was I listening to another podcast? Which is where it's when the policeman says when you've been pulled over for speeding. Were we talking about that?
I mean, we probably have at some point. We've been doing this 10 years. I can't remember. Who do you think you are, Sterling Moss?
Yeah, exactly. Or who do you are? Nigel Mansell, Damon Hill, Lewis Hamilton. It's when they start saying Norris, Bearman, or whatever instead of Lewis Hamilton. No one would ever say George Russell.
Who do you think you are? Andrea Kimi Antonelli? Do you reckon it varies around the world as well? Like, would
no,
it be
it's always a British driver.
Who do you think you are? Rio Haryanto? I can't do an Indonesian accent, but I'm sure it's something like that.
I think you should.
I don't think I should. Anyway, yeah, Norris, I don't know. Norris just had a bit of an off one. But he wasn't the only one, as we'll get to when we get to Mercedes. But I don't know. But this, I mean, I've thought this about Norris, and we've said it about Leclerc in the past as well. Like, too many little mistakes. If you're being touted as like one of the next big dogs, the next Verstappen, the next Hamilton, the next Alonso, the next Vettel in his prime, you should have nailed out. You should have got rid of all those mistakes by now, I think.
Maybe, but then again, Verstappen was making a lot of mistakes for a long time.
A couple of years. But then now they're gone.
I saw someone on an interview on the F1 TV coverage being like, the thing with Verstappen is he never makes a mistake. And you're like, yeah, now.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
When it matters. oh, that's the
when
point.
He came into F1, he was 7. So, I think it's fine. That now he's 12, he's ironed them out.
The only way they could get him to learn the track was by putting a triangle piece in a triangle hole. There's a joke there somewhere, but I don't know.
Something about the play bus? I'm not quite sure.
Aston Martin. Fernando Alonso wasn't terribly happy at the Bahrain Grand Prix, but Saudi was much more successful for the Spaniard as he attempts to ingratiate himself in a top team for next year. Future world champion Lance Stroll, however, had a less successful weekend, twatting the wall and burying his car in the crash barriers just to get Daddy's attention. Allegedly.
Fernando Alonso is going to have an entertaining season, I think. For us. Maybe not for him.
Yes.
Because he's got his eyes on the prize, and I don't think anymore that prize is getting the Aston to the point where it can win a championship. I think his eyes are now firmly on that Mercedes seat,
or even Red Bull. Let's face it, he's.
I mean nobody's talked about that. Could he get Perez's seat?
Well, if Max Verstappen goes,
Red
Bull want to get the
next.
next. Yeah, if Max Verstappen does go, which I don't think is very likely, but if he does go to Mercedes. Can you imagine it'd be Alonso, Hamilton and Verstappen in the top 3 cars? It'd be mental. But I think what's most interesting about Alonso is, I think he's looking very hard at Mercedes. He's probably looking quite hard at Red Bull.
I think he's looking away from Aston Martin. That's the thing.
Yeah, and I think what might happen is he might end up shitting in his own home. And do you
think Fernando Alonso would do something that alienates everybody around him and means he can't get a drive anywhere?
Yeah, I got a feeling
that would be unprecedented.
I think he's going to be in the factory slagging off the current. I don't know why. I just get a feeling he's got it in his character. I don't know why.
I'll blackmail you. I'll blackmail you.
And then next year, be like, no, I really love driving for Aston Martin again for a 3rd year on a 1-year contract.
Yes, it has always been my dream to finish 8th at the Italian Grand Prix.
Lance Stroll, what's he even playing at anymore? He's not even pretending to not enjoy being a Formula 1 driver these days.
I now can't remember if it was at the start of this weekend in practice or if it was last weekend at Byeeeee. I genuinely can't remember. But there was a point relatively recently where Lance Stroll drove to the level where I was like, oh, that's pretty good. Because what frustrates me about Lance Stroll is that somewhere in there is quite a good driver. It's just that we see him so rarely. And then he goes and does, admittedly this is a hard track to drive. But that's the kind of mistake that I've only really seen people make at the swimming pool in Monaco.
It was a mistake of somebody who had other things on his mind.
Anything else.
Yeah.
Macrame, horse riding.
And everyone listening to this is as sad as we've all been. We've all tried to do a full-length race on an Xbox or something. And what we discover, and I think I speak for everybody here, is not that it's hard to race a car. It's just hard to concentrate for that long.
Have you ever tried to do any kind of long Monaco race?
Yep.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah. It's the one time where you're like, God, actually, forgetting talent and fitness and all that, it's just really hard to not just be like, oh,
when you're sort of 25
tonight?
laps into a full-length Monaco simulation, you make one tiny mistake and you twat it into the wall. And obviously in that you can just go, flashback, let's do it again. But
I think Stroll's probably got enough money to do a flashback. Daddy, can you bend time?
Buy me the Large Hadron Collider. Well, I'd say he's going to be out of a drive, but is he? He's cursed to stay there forever.
I think if he carries on like this year, they've got to. They've got to, haven't they? But they won't. No, I don't know. I'm talking to myself now. I don't understand. They have to, they can't, but they won't, they will. Yes.
For more cutting-edge insights, subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Mercedes. After all the pre-season cautious optimism at Mercedes, it looks like they might have made a lemon again. Toto Wolff has spoken of a fundamental problem with the W15, namely that it's not very good at going around high-speed corners at high speed. Yeah, that seems pretty fundamental. George Russell managed to finish 6th, with Hamilton having an off weekend in 9th. But what's up with the car then?
So, I'm starting to imagine what's going on at Mercedes, which is they design really good cars, and for years they designed the best car. And the last few years, they keep thinking they've designed the best car, and they get to the start of the season, they realise they haven't. And I think it's an IT problem. I think somewhere in the settings of their big supercomputer, there's like, you know, if you, I mean, I don't use Windows anymore, but you know, if you use Windows and every now and again you're in some menus, and suddenly you click in a menu and you get some like really old-fashioned menu come up, and you're like, oh, that's strange, that's still here. And then there's a box to tick. And I think that's what's happened to Mercedes. Somewhere deep in the settings, there's a box that's ticked that shouldn't be ticked, or a box that's not ticked that should be ticked. And it's fucked all of their settings. Because now they're saying again, for the third year running, the stuff they're getting in the simulator isn't correlating with the track. And I think, just imagine if they've made a fantastic car, but there's like one setting that's going, nope.
Yeah, they haven't turned anti-aliasing on.
Yeah, something like that, you know, and it's just like, why is the car all blurry? It's all blocky.
It's all going through the CPU instead of the GPU. Maybe that's the trouble.
Yeah, something like that. Like someone's going to one day go, oh my God.
Maybe they're running AMD instead of NVIDIA.
We had the Wi-Fi on.
Oh. We've been running it local instead of on the cloud.
Yeah, which is maybe why they're trying to get Max Verstappen in, because he's very good with computers, isn't he?
He is. He's on it all the time.
He's always on his computer. Yeah.
He is.
They're probably not asking him to drive. They're just saying that they're like getting a grandson around to be like, we've got all this porn pop-ups on our computer. Can you get rid of them?
He's like a hacker. He's like Lex from Jurassic Park. Niche reference for you there. No, the original one. You didn't say the magic word.
Yeah, that was Newman.
It's a Unix system. I know this. Yes, I have watched Jurassic Park a lot.
I watched Jurassic Park at the cinema and I spilt all my popcorn. I don't know why that's the memory that comes. Or was that Robin Hood Princess Queen? Anyway. The 90s.
If you know, wrong at ff1s.com.
Well, you were in Cheltenham in around 1995 and saw a small, awkward boy with another family because for some reason this other family took pity on me and took me to the cinema. And I spilled all the popcorn they bought me because I bought a big popcorn because I didn't know how to act with other people. I make it sound like I was raised by wolves or something.
Was it Dances with Wolves?
Maybe it was Dances with Wolves.
Something with Kevin Costner.
Can we do an early 90s film podcast?
Oh, yes, please.
It's called fucking Waterworld.
$200 million that cost.
Worth every penny.
Yeah. It's not as bad as everyone said it was. Anyway.
And the also rans. Haas! Kevin Magnussen managed to get himself about 3 months' worth of penalties, but then selflessly sacrificed himself by annoying the fuck out of everyone behind him so Nico Hülkenberg could scamper up the road to get a point. It wasn't pretty, but it worked.
That was actually quite entertaining, that, once I realised what was going on.
No, I hated this, and you'd think with all my state of F1s, this would be the kind of thing I'd love, but I fucking hated it. I hate them all. I hate Haas, I hate Kevin Magnussen, I hate Nico Hülkenberg. Done.
Williams, Alex Albon was thwarted in his race for points by being smooshed in the wall by Kevin Magnussen and then got stuck behind him for ages. Logan Sargent was thwarted by crashing in FP3 and being slow in the race.
Get rid of Sargent. Bring in literally anyone from F2.
I think they should have Ollie Bearman doing both cars.
We'll get rid of Albon as well.
Yeah, fuck it. I'm sick of everyone.
Alpine. After being slow as hell in Bahrain, the Alpines were perhaps slightly less slow in Saudi, but only one of the cars made it past lap 1. Pierre Gasly had to retire straight after the start with a broken gearbox, while Ocon got stuck behind the Magnussen train and finished 13th.
I mean, still woeful, but slightly less woeful. That's not really an endorsement, though.
No. But it is saying something that in this, you know, do you remember we've just changed all the rules to make overtaking easier, and then Magnussen could decide to go slow on purpose and no one could overtake him. Oh, well done, Formula One. Well fucking done.
RB. If the wheels weren't already off the Daniel Ricciardo hype train, they're surely now being packed away into storage as the Honey Badger has been run over by his own decrepitude. Nearly half a second off Tsunoda in qualifying, he then had a lousy pit stop and dropped the car at the end of the race right in front of Sergio Perez. Yeah, good luck getting that seat now, D-Rick. In fairness, Tsunoda was only one place further up the road, but he got a penalty for an unsafe pit release.
Do you remember in testing everyone was saying, "Oh, the RB looks good"?
I do remember that, but I'm going to choose to not believe
Does it?
Yeah. And Ricciardo might have all the excuses in the world, and he might have been unlucky, and he had a bad pit stop, and all the rest of it. But there's nothing that says that you're shit for doing years in McLaren and being last all the time.
I was going to say, it's not like this has just happened. He's been shit for years.
And then go into the RB and be like, "Oh, he's still shit." I think two swallows make a summer.
What?
I
mean, your summer sound a lot more fun than mine.
Stake kick. Turns out that even with the cars painted bright green, we only notice Saubers when they smash into the wall in practice. Hi, Joe Granu.
Big old crap.
I'm getting a pathological hatred for Valtteri Bottas's moustache and mullet. Like, it's just, with the green suit and everything, it's just not funny. You're embarrassing yourself. Go home. Go home.
That's all he's got.
Quit.
Is that
Retire.
his bike?
No. He's got a lot of money and a bike.
Yeah, and yeah.
Go home,
fine.
Valtteri.
Was it him who had another? They had another shit pit stop. That's the one thing I did notice this race. They had Bottas last race had a terrible pit stop, and was it show this time? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was the same problem. Their wheel
They've
nuts.
forgotten how to make wheel nuts.
Brilliant.
As we've heard repeatedly over the years, F1 is full of nonsense. Enough is enough. Solutions must be found, but there is one man who has all the answers, and he will share them with you now. It's time for the State of F1 with Terry Saunders.
All hail Ollie Bearman. What a breath of fresh air it is having a rookie make an unexpected debut and generally doing well. Just looking at my stats book, the last time that happened was, last year with Liam Lawson. Am I complaining about new drivers getting their shot? Absolutely not. I'm complaining that having a driver thrust into the limelight and given a chance was so refreshing that it just showed up how many deadbeat has-beens are filling up the grid. It's like Formula 1 is an episode of Dad's Army. Don't tell him, Sainz, I have a solution. F1 has an age problem. Actually, no, it's not age, it's story. Drive to Survive has shown that the sport-watching public have an appetite for a narrative. We love a good story. And what else is the 2024 season? Do we care anymore that Nico Hülkenberg will never get a podium, or that Kevin Magnussen is a dad, or Valtteri Bottas? Hamilton is getting on a bit, and Alonso could have fathered half the grid. But with them, the story is still key. We want to see their fight. Daniel Ricciardo? Nah. F1 at its best is a sport of three carefully balanced halves. Those at the top of their game fighting for the championship, those on the downward slope to retirement, and those with the potential to become great. And as long as these groups are equal, we have an entertaining story. But in recent years, the downward-facing dogs seem to occupy well over half the grid, and thanks to years of Mercedes and Red Bull dominance, any with potential are soon sliding into irrelevance, except Valtteri fucking Bottas is in the bloody way. Move aside so that many more can fail, and therefore we can have more Bearmans. Failing that, we just have to wait till the 2026 rule change where appendix removals will be mandatory. Anyway, I'm not one to talk. When I saw that Bearman was getting driver of the day, it brought a tear to my eye, so I therefore tender my resignation.
We're getting soft in our old age. That was the same thing. When he hugged his dad at the end, I was
cynical.
like, "Oh,
yeah,
that's really nice."
I can't be cynical. I hope Bearman has a bit of a career in Formula 1 so I can grow to hate him like all the other drivers. I'm sure that when George Russell was first on the scene, I was excited by him, and now I think he's a and maybe that's the saddest thing about this weekend, is watching someone with such hope, with such dignity, with such grace and talent, and I'm enjoying watching him, and yet I know in a couple of months I'll hate him. And who's the loser here?
Circle of life.
That's it from us. We'll be back even before there's more racing with another of Phil Troman's race previews, and we'll be answering your questions in Listener's Corner. Until then, it's goodbye to Phil Troman.
Goodbye. We haven't had time to talk about F1 Academy, which was on TV and was quite good, but it got silly towards the end of the second race.
And to Terry Saunders.
There's an Italian bloke with a hat who was also a Ferrari debut driver once, and it was his birthday this weekend. Happy birthday. We haven't got time to talk about it.
Arturo.
In the meantime, check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/for F1's sake, and follow us on Twitter @for F1's sake. Oh, and check out our YouTube channel where you can see us as well as hear us. If you're watching on YouTube already, here's something just for you.
Oh. That's we're going to lose subscribers.
However you want to watch or listen, just type in "for F1's sake" to something and see what comes up. Terry, where can people buy merch?
We've got a whole load of new merch. We've made new T-shirts. We've made new caps. We haven't made them. I've designed them. We've got some caps.
Oh, I
We've
should
got
get some.
Dutch caps. Oh my god. That actually is not a bad merch idea in modern Formula One. You could buy your Max Verstappen branded Dutch cap. Anyway, go to ff1s.com/shop.
Thanks for listening. I've been Drew Stearne. Goodbye.
Bye.